Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to today's Infopedia web conference. You've joined us for What's New in Scripted User Enablement. We are broadcasting and recording this web conference through Skype meeting broadcast, and the audio can be heard through your PC speakers. If you do not consent to being part of a recorded session, we ask that you please disconnect your browser at this time. The web conference recording will be available at skypeoperationsframework.com/academy within 48 hours. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located either on the right-hand side of your screen or by scrolling down to below the video pane. We have posted a few items there already and will continue to monitor that throughout the session. So now let's get started with that session. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Principal Program Manager Nick Smith. Nick, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Janice. Welcome everyone to today's session on scripted user enablement. Specifically, this is a what's new session. SOF is something that we continue to iterate on, and so we want to make sure that everyone can go and get updates on the updates that we have to the content without having to go through a full recording. So today I will be covering what's new. If this is your first exposure to the scripted user enablement activity, I would suggest that you go ahead and watch the full session, which we just posted the other day, that includes all the background information on what the script does, including everything that I will cover today and what's new. That one session will cover everything that is up to date on the latest asset. For those of you who have reviewed my old recording or have used the script in the past, we're just going to cover what's new today. If you do want to go back and get a refresher on the old session, that is available at www.skypeoperationsframework.com/academy. Just very quick about me. My name is Nick Smith, and as Jenny said, I am a Principal Program Manager for Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft for about 9 years. I spent 4 of those years in services working directly with customers, doing on-site deployments, and the rest of the time I've been in the product group focused on some of our largest deployments and really the customer experience. I'm currently on the customer experience and deployment team, very specifically on the Academy team, which helps to create some of these documents and convey some of the learnings. Very quickly about SOF, I assume that everyone has seen this, considering this is a What's New session, but it's also always important to make sure that we have the right positioning. SOF, or the Skype Operations Framework, is a methodology that we have put together to help enterprises get deployed in the cloud. The shift to the cloud requires a bit of different thinking, but yet we still encounter many of the same issues and challenges that we have with on-premise deployments. And so we developed the Skype Operations Framework to give people a roadmap of those tasks that you need to do in order to ensure the best chance at success. This is one piece of the Skype Operations Framework, and all the pieces of Skype Operations Framework come together to help with an end-to-end deployment. So make sure you go check out all of the assets, including the journeys that we have for getting deployed in the cloud and also for getting migrated. SOF is also a living framework. It's something that we continue to iterate on. And some of the best additions that we have come from your input. What has worked for you? What doesn't? Is there anything that we need to correct or something that you feel that we're missing? Are there any things that you think that we can improve on training or in the deliverables themselves? We very much want to hear your feedback. And there are 2 ways in which we can get this. One is to give us direct feedback at skypeoperationsframework.com/feedback. And then also to discuss these assets at the community. That's aka.ms/SOF community. That will allow, we monitor both. It will allow us to find out what's working, what's not, get your feedback, help us to prioritize future investments into the framework. Very quickly, a training disclaimer. As I said, we are updating on a constant basis. This particular is V2 of the script. We had previously done a training for V1, and I assume in the future there will be V3, V4. So you can always make sure that you get the latest trainings at skypeoperationsframework.com/academy. And for those of you who are watching this on a recording, just for an FYI for you, this training has been recorded in October 2016. So very quickly, what is scripted user enablement? Scripted user enablement is a set of assets that we have that will help you to deploy at scale. Within the cloud, you have the ability of going through and very easily enabling a user, finding a phone number, assigning a phone number, and even through on-premises ways of going through migration. Those things work very well for small amounts of users, but they're also prone to inconsistency, and they also can be time-consuming if you are trying to migrate an entire site. So we have developed the scripted user enablement so that you can run this on 1 or 5 or 10 or even thousands of users so that you have a consistent experience. You know that all the users have been enabled in the same way. It also allows you to automate all of those tasks for up to thousands of users as you're migrating sites. This activity is very specifically within the deliver phase, and is even more specifically within the enable piece. So when you go to the Skype Operations Framework site, you will see this wheel. I encourage you to look at all the assets, but if you want to get directly to the script, go ahead and click on the enable phase, and it will show you the contents that we have for the script. But I also want to call out that the Skype Operations Framework is a full life cycle. It's a full framework. There are assets in other phases of the framework that will help out with this. Specifically within plan, there's the site rollout and migration planning activity that will help you to go through and plan all the things that you need to do for a site rollout. One of the outputs of that activity is all the information that you need for the input file for this script. So even though the script is in the enable phase, I encourage you to look at the entire journey so that you can make sure that you're getting the most out of the framework and help to prepare those things that you need for running this particular task. Just kind of a review of some of the things in scripted user enablement. I've already covered, the ability to do it for thousands of users, the consistent experience. I also want to make sure that everyone knows that I wanted to make this script as easy as possible. I wanted to make it so that you could say, I want this user to have these features. So as a reminder, the script will actually go through, it will double check whether or not the user is assigned a license. It will assign them a license if they are not assigned. And in V1 of the script, it would then go through and configure the voice features for those users based upon your input. What's new, and what I'll discuss more in depth in the coming slides, is the ability to migrate your on-premises users to online. And we've added that into the script, and that's what I'll be covering today. So the way the script works is you will provide it an input file and some parameters that tell us how to connect to the online environment and what accounts to use. The script works by going through all of the users in that input file, and it will first attempt to make sure that they're assigned all the appropriate licenses and assign them a uses location. I will process every single user before moving on to the next step within the script. The reason why I do that is because it takes time from license assignment to services enablement and the ability to configure users. So as you are running the script, you will see it go through and check and assign licenses and give you a result on each of those saying licenses have been enabled. Likely between that step and the next step, you will see the script say that it is pausing to wait for those licenses to become active. That is the separation that you see between the process all users boxes on this slide. What is new in the script is a kind of step in between enablement of licenses and configuration, and that is to migrate any of those on-premises users that you specify that need to be migrated. So after all the licenses are signed, I will go through and I'll start checking that first user to make sure that those licenses are active. Once I know that those are active, I will go ahead and start to migrate users. I actually do that check on active licenses for all users, but I expect that as we are waiting on one user for licenses to be active, many of those other users will have their licenses become active as well. And that is why I go through and I process all users at each step here, because I'd like to have all those users waiting at the same time. So when I go through and I go to migrate users from on-premises, in the input file, there will be an option that says migrate to Skype for Business Online. Any of those users in which the input file says true, I will then go through and connect to the local on-premises pool based upon the input that you give me, and I will connect to it and issue the commands to migrate those users to online. I will migrate any users that we specify to migrate online before trying to do the configuration of all users. Again, that's because I want to make sure that as users are migrated to online, we have time for all of the attributes in the online world to update so that we can be successful in configuration. After we've migrated all those users, then I'll go through and based upon the settings in the input file, we will configure the voice features, whether it's Cloud PSTN conferencing, Cloud PBX, PSTN calling, assign any phone numbers. And then at the end, I will produce a report, both in the PowerShell window as well as in a CSV file afterwards, that will tell you what the success or error was for each user in each of those steps. That will allow you, especially if you're running the script against thousands of users, to go ahead and run the script, step away from your machine, allow all those processes to happen, come back and do a quick review of what was successful, what phone numbers were assigned, and also if there's anyone that you need to go back and double check if there happen to be any issues or any errors. If your users are already in the state and you run this script, I'll just make sure that they are configured the way in which you want them to be configured based upon the input file. The only exception there is that this is kind of a non-destructive script. If a user is assigned a license that is conflicting with what you're trying to do, you'll get an error message because I don't want to take away any services from the user. And so I expect that they'll be configured in a way that will either allow me to add the services or I'll just be configuring those services. Again, I cover that in much more detail in the full training of this that is already posted out on the Academy site, as well as there's very detailed documentation that comes along with the script that lets you know what to expect and how the script runs. Now, there are a couple of changes that we had to make in the script that are changes from V1 that are also additions from V1 that we needed to make in order to add in the migration piece. And so these are very important, especially if you're already using V1 of the script. The first one is when you run the script, we had a parameter called admin username. That has been changed to Office 365 admin username. The reason that has been changed is because if we're doing a migration of users, I need to find out both your online admin username as well as your on-premises username, and admin username would just be confusing. So you'll also see that we added a couple of options in those parameters for on-premises admin username and on-premises FQDN. Those two on-premises parameters are optional. They're only used if you say that you're going to migrate users. If you do not supply them at script invocation and I see that you're going to be migrating users, I'll prompt you for them. But at some point during the script, I will need both of those pieces of information if you're planning on migrating users. I need that information so that I can invoke PowerShell remoting to your on-premises pool, connect to it with the appropriate permissions, and migrate users. I've also added a couple of parameters just to make it easier for people who are running the script many times. By default, the script will actually report results in a results.csv file, and we'll report its verbose logging information in a file called verbose info.log. What I have done is I have created parameters for the script that will allow you to specify the names for both of those files. So if you're looking at wanting to save those files off into a different location, save those files with the names of a specific run that you're doing, you can get that information, or you can specify those file names at script invocation. The other changes that we had to make is in the input file. As I said earlier, I added a migrate to Skype for Business Online option. So the input file will be a little bit different. If you've been running this for the V1 of the script, you're going to need to update your input file. Again, this is a true-false option that will allow you to say whether or not that particular user needs to be migrated to Skype for Business Online. I have also, based upon your feedback and questions that I have received, adjusted the name of one of the columns in that input file. Previously, I had a column name called Enable PSTN Calling International. That was in addition to an Enable PSTN Calling Domestic option. What we found is that people thought that in order to give someone the ability to call both international and domestic, they'd say true to both. Those are actually two separate licenses, and they are mutually exclusive. You cannot assign them at the same time. The international license actually already includes domestic calling. And so what I've done is I have updated that name within the input file to be Enable PSTN Calling Domestic and International, which more aligns with what that license is actually called when you go to buy it. And it should also remove that confusion of, do you have to say true to each or just specify one? Because you can only specify one for assignment. And then finally, just some logistics. In the results reporting, I've added a column in there that reports on the migration result of the user. So if a user needs to be migrated, it will say migrated if it was successful. If it was not successful, throw some sort of error. If the user was not specified for migration, I'll just go ahead and put in there a user was skipped because they weren't specified for migration. But all that information is now included in the reporting result. So at a high level, not too many changes to the script. It's just the additional functionality and a couple of things that I needed to change for this. And that's about all that we have for what's new in the script. Again, if you have any questions, one, go back and review the other training that we have for the full scripts. Also, send us any feedback, ask us any questions. Use the resources that we have available here. So again, you can download all these assets, the entire journey at skypeoperationsframework.com. You can provide us feedback, such as any issues you're having with the script, any questions you have at that feedback link. You can access this training and other trainings at Academy. I do recommend that you go and check out the site rollout and migration planning training if you're going to be running this activity, because that will help you to understand those things that you need to know about the site, how to create the input file, the assets that we have there. And then also help others and contribute into the SOF community at our community site. That's all I have today for what's new. I will be available for some Q&A, and I believe Janice has some instructions on how you can submit some questions.
All right, thanks, Nick. All right, audience, as Nick mentioned, we will be starting a Q&A in just a moment. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, simply type it into the white text box on the right-hand side of your screen, or by scrolling down to below the video player. Before we start Q&A though, if you've not already found it, I'd like to bring your attention to a link on the upper right-hand side of the viewing window that says Survey Link. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference, and we ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference or have feedback on how we can provide you a better event, this is your chance to let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Nick to handle any Q&A. Nick, the floor is all yours.
All right, great, thank you. We do have a couple of questions, although as we are going through these, if you have any further questions, please feel free to add them. First question, can this script be used for enabling on-premise users? It's a very good question. The answer is no. This script is very much designed for enablement of our cloud users and migration for users to the cloud. Therefore, it is designed with the logic for assigning Office 365 licenses and configuring those features. So this script is purely for enabling and migrating users to the cloud. It will not work for on-premises. Looks like we have a second question here. It says, what happens if I rerun the script against an input file and I try to migrate a user that has already been migrated? That's a very good question. So I have put logic into the script. One, I do trust that the data in the input file is valid and correct, but I will do some verification. So if I see a user is specified to be migrated to online, but they are already online, I'll go ahead and throw up a message in that result saying user skipped because they've already been migrated. You might ask, why would I rerun against the same input file where a user would be specified for migration twice? And that's because sometimes you might go through and get some errors in the final configuration. And if you get that and you have to go and resolve a couple of issues, maybe unassign a conflicting license, you can just run the script again against that input file to try and get people into the desired configuration. So I actually do some fairly in-depth error checking there to make sure that users are in the proper state before I actually try and run a migration. And it looks like those are the only questions that we have. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on how you run the script. I'm constantly looking at ways of improving the script, improving the execution. So please provide feedback. Let me know how it worked for you, because I also want to hear your success stories. That'd be a fantastic thing to put into the community so that other people see how successful it was. And then if you have any questions, anything else, please use the feedback link. Anything related to the script gets directed to me and I'll be able to respond. So thank you very much, and good luck with the enablement of your users. And I look forward to the script being a major asset for the purposes of having a successful enablement. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Nick. All right, audience, the recording from today's presentation will be available on skypeoperationsframework.com/academy. You'll also receive an email 72 hours post-conference with details on where to access it. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Nick Smith, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today. This does conclude today's session, and you may now disconnect from the broadcast.